like their health programs right after in January 1st. It's wrong time. Wrong time to do it. The time to do it is after the Chinese New Year, because that's the low ebb. After that, the energy is rising. This is why so many people's exercise programs don't work. They start right as the energy is slowing down on January 1st, and then they kind of run out of steam. But if you start after the Chinese New Year, now the energy is rising. So as you're working on your personal well-being, you've got the wind at your back. That was pithy.
That was. I like that. That was very good. And so, no aspects on the first, but on the second, Mars enters Pisces. Now, again, this is not a sign where Mars is typically felt to be very powerful, but it is very powerful for health. And Mars is a sign Mars is a planet that represents your physicality, your physical health. And when we're in the sign of Pisces, you have to think about things like your lymphatic system, which is not something you particularly think about all the time, but it's so important for your immune health and everything, your circulation, all kinds of systems in the body depend on having a good immune system and lymphatic system. So this is a time, like you said, a start, maybe there's a lymphatic cleanse or a lymphatic drainage.
Well, you bring that up. It's really interesting because this year, our sales of lymphatic drainage is a great product have been through the roof.
Right.
And I really think it's because the lymphatic system, you have 3 times as much lymph as you have blood.
Right.
Okay. But it's all run by check valves. So when you're walking and such, it checks. So if you sit all the time, it doesn't have a chance to move. But the lymphatic system is primarily a lot of fluid that's very high in the alkaline minerals. So it acts as kind of an intuitive antenna. People are so overwhelmed by the vibes in the air right now. I think a lot of people's systems are really clogged. So they're going through a lot of lymphatic drainage.
And understand that your lymphatic system is also responsible for your intuition.
Exactly.
So if you can't go with your gut feelings anymore because the lymph is clogged. So
exactly,
it's important for everybody. We've got squares to Uranus and an opposition to Mars, but this is a day to take hold of that situation. And then we head up to the full moon eclipse on the 3rd. Now, this is the second in a pair of eclipses. Yes. The other eclipse was on the
Chinese New Year.
17th on the Chinese New Year, which also is filled with double entendre there. But so this is the full moon eclipse at 12 degrees Virgo. So everybody has something around there in Virgo or at a mutable sign. So this is a reminder. And again, in Virgo, another health reminder. So, March is usually a good time to start thinking about your health.
By the way, anything you have in the sign of the dolphins, aka Pisces, Mars is going to be in that sign until the 9th of April. Okay, so watch out if you have the sun or the rising there or even the moon. Watch out because you'll be a little more impetuous. It's a tendency when you have that kind of transit, people bump their heads. They think that bright light isn't really yellow, is it? I can go through it. They tend to rush. People tend to be impulsive. So be a little more careful with that kind of stuff.
And I want to point out something I wrote in the forecast area of the calendar that you might not notice from the grid on the calendar. And that is that the fact that the total eclipse, the sun is conjunct Pallas Athena. Now, we don't put Pallas Athena in the calendar charts. But Pallas Athena is an advocate for the needy, workers, and women. Right. And with Mars at the lunar node, Mercury and Venus are also in Pisces. This is also strongly supported by Jupiter in the sign of the crab. Yeah. There are powerful feminine influences at work. So the 3rd is going to be a very sort of pivotal day for you to establish the feminine in you and what that means with your responsibility to yourself and maybe the world.
Yeah, one of the things you actually learn when you read the book Reclaiming is that astrology in its true form leans towards the feminine. We keep running across this phrase, the future is feminine. It leans towards the feminine. When they broke the geometry, they leaned it towards the masculine, but the true geometry actually leans towards the feminine. And the reason is we live on Gaia. We live on Earth.
Well, and the feminine is what gives life. So you're the responsible for the life. And so we move on. We've got all kinds of social stuff
Yes.
going on the 4th.
Yes.
The 5th is just,
A stack of
it
stuff.
looks like the 5th with all those aspects on the aspectarian line, it looks like there's a lot of dynamism going on there. But if you look, 3 out of the 4 aspects are really parallels, which are sort of aspect wannabes.
Lining up. It's kind of like lining up.
And what they do is support each other.
Yes.
So if there's another strong aspect that you're going to feel, it'll support that aspect. But in and of itself, it doesn't have a lot of oomph.
Yeah, what's interesting on that day is that the sun is trine Jupiter, which it only happens, twice a year. This is always like saying that the king and the prince are kind of getting along well, or the queen and the princess are getting along well, in this case, because it's in Pisces. But those parallels, it's a little bit like those two are really working well, and everyone's kind of lining up around them. So I think there's going to be a strong sense as we go to the later part of the week in terms of the global picture, people kind of lining up and getting into alignment with certain ideas in a positive way.
And Friday is Venus's day, and Venus took that opportunity to enter Aries. And I think that Ralph has something to say about that.
Yes. So what do we say on the 6th? Oh, yes. Venus enters a sign she is not all that comfortable in, but like I said, it's very personal. But she will, who will she share with, talk to, or even argue with? Probably herself. Don't fall into the trap of being rude or self-critical. You're better than that, girl. Look to Saturn and Neptune to guide you, because remember, Saturn and Neptune are both in Aries now, towards your beloved Taurus at the end of the month, when you can return to your more Venusian pursuits. Aries, Taurus, and Libra will really feel this transit. But like I said before, Venus and Aries is it's about self-worth, it's about self-grooming, about self-health. Really focus on that, and really focus on the people close to you. It's not a social position. It's a very personal position.
So now take that, like I said before, out of this forecast, because we got a lot to get here without mentioning everything twice.
Yes, sorry.
We've got some dynamic aspects on the Saturday, but they're mostly conjunctions. But there's so many personal planets involved in these planetary aspects going on. So you're going to feel this really like in your family life, in your work life, in your daily life. It's not going to be one of those times where the featured planets are the ones that are out there and generational.
It's going to be a cool weekend, though, between all those planets on Saturday and then the white circle on Sunday. It's just a cool weekend. Then Monday is really, really social. There's a lot of social interaction going on from Saturday, Sunday into Monday. People are really getting engaged.
Well, that white circle on Sunday, on the 8th, that really is going to be a very dynamic one. So make use of that as you can.
Women are going to feel really empowered, too, over that weekend. With all this stuff in Pisces, with Venus in Aries, and then the moon in the sign of the eagle, a.k.a. Scorpio, with all those aspects going on, with the sun trine the moon, women are going to feel very empowered.
The 9th looks like a very social day, and then we move up to the 10th where we have Jupiter going direct. So that's going to help you feel unstuck, you know, a little bit, you may have been feeling a little bit stalled. Like I said, your intuition might be stalled. Jupiter is related to intuition as well as a ruler of Pisces. And so that from moving forward from there is going to be felt pretty profoundly after the 10th.
Where is it in your chart? That's what you want to know. Where is Jupiter turning direct in your chart? What part of your life is about to go, ooh, I just got big? I like that.
Well, and what degree does Jupiter turn
details
direct on?
15 degrees, I think. Yeah, 15 degrees, right in the middle. So a big...
Of Cancer.
Yeah.
Right.
The crab.
So what do you have at 15 cardinal?
Yeah, but pretty much whatever house it's in, pay attention.
Exactly.
Now on the 11th, you have a long void of course. It runs from like 2:38 in the morning till 9:07 p.m. at night on the West Coast.
Day is void of course. Now I have to say it's void of course in Sagittarius. So usually in signs of Jupiter or the moon, the void of course is a little bit easier, but this is such a long one that I wouldn't count on that. Plus the fact that Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter, who has just changed direction. So
Could be a
we'll
lot of
see
turbulence.
if there's some turbulence left over from that.
Exactly. We get up on the weekend. We have that 14th with all those lunar aspects. Very social weekend. This is a nice social month the way it's going. Watch out on the 15th. You have Mercury conjunct Mars. Could be an inclination for arguments.
Yeah, I was just going to say combative. Sounds like, and that Mercury, maybe he says something before he thinks and Mars reacts.
And Mercury's retrograde, so it could be about an argument you had before coming back up
that
again.
you thought was settled.
Yeah, remember
Mercury's
retrograde during this period of time.
Not too many big aspects going on the 16th and the 17th, but whoa, the 18th is a busy day.
Yes, the new moon, it's at 28 degrees of the dolphins. Also, you have the sun is sextile the planet of Uranus, whereas Uranus at that point, Uranus is still in the late part of Taurus, correct? It's about to go, so in Taurus. So you have, all kinds of things going that day. You have Venus square Jupiter. You have the moon is going to be sextiling Uranus and conjunct Neptune on that day. So, it's just a busy day. And then, of course, and that's a lot of those transits of the moon are happening late. And then you see the next day, on the 19th, the moon is going to conjunct Saturn. So that's happening late. But it's just going to be... It's going to be a real intense new moon.
And the 19th is a very light day in terms of influences because they're all parallels on the line. So again, that makes it back into the social realm rather than in externalized stuff being influences on you.
But
on the 20th...
That's just the cream cheese on this bagel because you got the 18th and then you got the 20th, which are both extreme, right? And then you got the 19th sitting in the middle.
And that's the cream cheese in the middle?
That's the cream cheese in the middle.
Where's the smoked salmon? Come on.
On the 20th, the sun enters Aries and Mercury goes direct on the same day. So all during this period of time, Mercury's been stationing. So figure those days, 18th, 19th, 20th.
Well, even from the 15th, harboring that grudge from beforehand, with that Mercury conjunct that Mars. But the 20th, first day of spring, I know the East Coast people will be very happy to start feeling like a spring has finally come. We dipped back into the 30s all of a sudden after we had some beautiful days in the 70s. The weather has been just unpredictable and crazy.
And there's a frame around the number.
So that means we have a long void of course. That void of course starts
20th.
at 2 in the morning and goes to 11:30 at night. So that whole day is void.
Don't plan on starting anything from like the 17th to the 21st, anything important. Okay, schedule around that if you can. Just because it's going to be between stationing and movement.
Keep your head down.
It's going to be a little hard to stay kind of focused. Have a nice lunch. Go out to lunch.
Yeah.
But
things are looking up on the 21st when we have a Mars trine Jupiter.
Which is a very lucky aspect.
And a lovely just sextile from Mercury to the moon. And where is that moon?
The moon is in the sign of the cow.
Moon
Taurus.
is in Taurus.
The sign of going out to lunch. Yes.
Puts oil on the waters, calms everything down.
Yes.
Lovely Taurus moon.
Yeah, because now and so on the Sunday, once again, a very social Sunday. When you see all those planets up above the number, those are lunar aspects. It means a very, very social day. And interesting, the sun is conjunct Neptune. It'll be interesting to see what's happening on that day because, the sun is resonating with that same energy right at the beginning of Aries. This is it's a very powerful place. Interesting. We live in Napa, and Napa was founded on the 22nd. So the Saturn-Neptune conjunction is passing right over Napa, right at the time when we have some really big construction projects going on. Saturn's about structures and buildings. So the 23rd is also a nice social day. 24th is quiet. We got the first quarter moon on the 25th.
I see a decided lack of asterisks in that week.
Yeah, once you get past
there's only one coming up in the following week, but I think that the aspects are pretty self-explanatory. You get to the 25th, you've got a lot going on with the sun.
Yeah, exactly.
The sun and Saturn, the sun and the moon, the sun and Pluto. Thankfully, we've got that trine to the moon from Mercury, because there's even a couple of squares to Saturn and Neptune with that Cancerian moon. So
To give you an idea of how much...
that's a mixed bag, as we say, when we're trying to figure out whether or not it gets a white circle or a black box.
To give you an idea of how much this changes quickly, this year I took colored pencils and I marked like in red the lines between eclipses, the first eclipse and the second eclipse, and I used another color, I think orange, for Mercury retrogrades, and I marked them down on the calendar. When you go from February into March, it's just color all the way up until the total eclipse on the 3rd, and then Mercury continues on all the way up to the 20th. And once you get past the 20th, it's like clear sailing.
Clear sailing.
It's like, whoa, what happened? It's like, wait, the storm blew over, and the sun came out, and the winds are nice and going, and the winds are pushing us the direction we want to go. That's how dramatically the month changes.
I think it broke Ralph's heart not to give a white circle on the 27th, Friday the 27th.
Yes.
You know how he has a penchant for making white circles for the sun trine moon. And it probably really deserved it, because that opposition to Pluto is not the hardest aspect, because you won't know the effects of that until later. And and the lunar aspects come and go quickly. So with all those trines above the number and the sun trine moon, that's a good day. I would take advantage of that. I'm always sad when there's only one white circle day in the month. So let's make that an honorary white circle for those of you who are listening to us.
Now, the sun trine moon is an interesting name, because basically means, the two of the three biggest players in our world, the third one being the Earth itself, the energy of the Earth itself, are playing really, really well. And this is after the new moon, so energy is climbing, and you get to a point where the triangle that's formed between the sun, the Earth, and the moon is especially harmonious. And so it's just a very easy period of time. People tend to feel comfortable. So when you're working on a project, you need to work with other people. It's a great time to have a meeting, to work together with people, move things forward. And the other one is the sun trine moon after the full, which tends to be kind of the expression of it. What's interesting about that day is that those lunar aspects are all to Uranus, Neptune, and Saturn, past Jupiter, and then finally the opposition to Pluto. So there's a certain global sense to it, and we're having a lot of, we've been in this period of time, and you see through the Saturn-Neptune conjunction. Remember, Saturn was the most outer planet that we can see without a telescope. So it was always about big structures. It's the wall at the outside, at the edge of our village, that kind of thing. It's the outer walls of our house. So there's been a very strong sense, because of the way global politics has been going, that lots of people are intellectually connected to what's happening globally. There's a really strong sense, which is why I said earlier, people's lymphatic systems and intuition are getting overwhelmed.
Well, and that's the point I want to make. A lot of these aspects that have been going on through the month have not been to the outer planets. There's a couple little ones that show up in lunar aspects, but there aren't really any big aspects to the body-to-body, and other than the moon. And so we get this transition now in March from take care of your inner world, take care of your close circle, take care, think local, and act local. But that pivot point sort of comes around that time, towards the end of the month, where you're going to start again to start looking at the broader community.
And Venus in Taurus is a very interesting position, because the whole concept of Taurus, the original symbol was Bovis, or the cattle. It had to do with the fact that it was primarily the women who herded the cattle. And you've heard these stories about in these tribes, the woman had a dowry, and her dowry was 50 head of cattle. And because in these indigenous societies, even today, in terms of what wealth is, cattle were considered to be the most valuable mobile resource.
Oh, you wouldn't have married me without all those cattle.
It's true. It was a good deal. So, and I do love cattle. So we live in wine country. There's a lot of beautiful cattle around here. But nevertheless, but it's the sign of wealth. And it was the fact that the women were the ones who managed it. And in many societies, in Japanese societies for centuries, it was the women who managed all the money in the households. In Rome, ancient Rome, it was the women who actually ran the money sides of the business. The men went out and did stuff. In Napa, where we lived, back in the 1800s, more land was controlled by women than men, because the men would go off to the gold rush and things, but the women would actually run the ranches. Thousands and thousands and thousands of acres. It's a concept of land, of wealth. So when Venus goes into Taurus, people are going to be very sensitized to what's the economy doing. How's inflation doing? What's our money worth at this period of time? And we've said in the early part of this month, women are increasingly being empowered all the way through this month. And as we go into Aries, the Ram, Venus is now really in her favorite spot. So,
and with your permission, I'd like to wind up this forecast on a positive note. We're talking about Venus entering Taurus. That's going to be on the 30th at 9 a.m. And I'd like to read: a fast-moving Venus enters Taurus. We told you she was pretty much treading water in Aries, so get ready to relax, indulge, and make good investments. That could be time, money,
very nice.
And efforts, but invest you shall. And so come see us on...
Well, we just have one other thing I'd like to cover before we do our sign-off.
I knew he was going to do that.
I'm sorry. But there's also one thing. Just so just on April Fool's Day, April 1st, that's also the full moon. So we start off. Make sure you come to next month's forecast, because we got a great way to start. We got the full moon. In March, we didn't have any aspects. This month, in April, we got lots of aspects.
Just start on it. And it's at 12 degrees Libra, so we'll give you a little heads up.
Yeah.
You can check out where that's going to happen in your chart.
Yeah.
For the full moon on April 1st.
Exactly. Okay. Now you can.
And you'll get our annual April Fool's talk also, because there are people who take umbrage with the terminology, but it's not what you think. So tune in next time when you come see us at Planetary Calendar Astrology on YouTube, or visit us at planetarycalendar.com, where you can not only get a calendar, or you can even get our books. We have the Reclaiming Astrology from the Patriarchy. We have the mini Feng Shui and the Tango. And we're working on a book for making 5 keys to a successful home office. So stay tuned for that.
Yes, that's one we're very excited about. And it's a little book. It's not a big book, but it should have some great pictures in it.
Little book, big influence.
So as we're going into spring, I think we can all hope on being more optimistic and feel like some of the worst is behind us at this point. The first 6 months of this year we've warned you last year that this would be chaotic. Once we get past the first 6 months, it really chills out, but especially so much was concentrated in January and February. Now we still got Uranus is going to change sign into Gemini, okay? And this area where it's going across now, which is Uranus in the late part of the cow Bovis Taurus, is a very difficult part of the zodiac, but we're moving into better waters, so you might say. So thanks so much for joining us.
Be well, good stars.
Yes.